It's cannibalism time. Today, I'm going to be turning this into an eldritch horror, or using it as the base for it. So, my name is Mildly Gothic, and I like to do a variety of artsy things here, all with a little bit of a dark twist. And today I've decided I want to make a Cthulhu plushie. I love the Cthulhu mythos. It's one of my favorite kind of horror things. This plushie is inspired by a painting of Cthulhu that I've done, that I will put here. And I've never made a plushie before, so I figured what better way to start than doing something my mother hates when I do, and is buy something purely for the purpose of taking it apart or destroying it. So, I have purchased this teddy bear for a semi-reasonable price. And I picked this one for a variety of reasons. I like its head size, versus some of them had really, really large ones. I like the general proportions and how it's sitting. I like its overall size. And I actually like the fabric. And when I take this guy apart, this is actually something, maybe I can find something to do with it. So I tried to pick something that has some potential reuse in it. So what I'm going to be doing is, if you've never done it before, this is actually a technique you can also use with clothes. If there's like, you really like this one pair of shorts, but they're kind of falling apart, or you wish they were a different color, you can use those as an existing pattern. It's sometimes best if you seam rip it, which is what I'm going to do with him, or if it's clothing, you can just lay it out and actually kind of like trace it, as long as you get it as flat as possible and remember to account for seam allowance. So, I'm going to take a seam ripper to a teddy bear, and I'm going to turn him into an eldritch horror. I've got all of my fabric and stuff here. Going for a lighter version than some people might think an eldritch horror for, but that's fine. I can do what I want. And so this beautiful little teddy bear is about to become pieces of a beautiful little teddy bear. And I can't wait to show you the final result.
So first things first is to seam rip it apart. You need to pick a starting point, and I chose the back, and more specifically the tail, as I was okay if I accidentally tore this part of the fabric, as it wasn't something I was interested in replicating, and therefore I could kind of be a little bit more rough with it to get it started, and then be more careful as I proceeded from there. Patience is key when it comes to seam ripping. You want to be careful not to tear holes in your fabric, and you want to make sure that you are not stretching it unnecessarily if it is a fabric that may warp. It did take a good bit of time. I think it took about 2 hours total to seam rip the teddy bear apart and separate all of the pieces and undo all of the darts and everything that was in him. And I also made my best effort to label the pieces so that I could understand what was going on and know how to put them back together again at the end.
So, I sit before a pile of fluff and teddy bear pieces. The head is interesting. The way the eyes are put in, I don't think I can really get them out, so I'm gonna have to do my best when it comes to replicating the pieces for the face. But other than that, I have labeled these with barely a naming convention, and I'm trying to make sure I mark darts and other things like that so I can account for them when I put this back together. But yeah, I have all of the pieces. I've only dismantled one of 2 legs because I should just be able to duplicate these pieces as long as I'm conscious of which side is the front and the layout of them. But the next step is figuring out how to put this together. A few complications with this as far as something that I've noticed. The seam allowance on these pieces is all over the place. It is highly inconsistent. There's places where the edge of the fabric was literally at where it was stitched on, and there's places where there's almost a ½ inch of seam allowance. So using the outlines of these pieces exactly is going to be highly questionable. So I'm probably, if I show you me drawing out the pattern pieces, there's definitely going to be some where I don't look like I'm following it exactly, and that's why. There's some really weird seam allowance stuff going on. But I've got all of my pieces. My plan is he's going to be dark blue and light blue. His main color is going to be this wonderful dark blue fabric, and then a secondary color is going to be this light fabric. And I have, hopefully, plenty, and I have a general idea of where these colors are going to go, and so without further ado, let's put them them together.
Overall, I followed the pattern pieces generally, but the ones that I really shouldn't even have bothered of cutting out were the arm pieces, as I ended up completely changing the shape, and to an extent that I couldn't even use what I cut out as a basis for it. I had to cut it out like 3 different times. The fluff also proved interesting as far as trying to follow the edges of the pattern pieces, and it made it pretty difficult, so there's definitely some that ended up a little wonky, and I decided to recut because of that. That's my fault for not being more precise necessarily with what I did, but it ended up working out. So, quick apologies because I did a terrible job of filming the sewing together of the body of this plushie. I started with the feet just because I could very easily understand what those patterns were supposed to be, and then moved together to sew the body together and attach the legs to the body. Should I have used instructions from a different teddy bear pattern as reference? Probably. Did I? No. It ended up okay, but I think part of that chaos is the reason I did not film any of that. So we're going to kind of jump right towards when the body is sewn together. Sorry for the continuity errors. There's 2 other pieces to this plushie that I would not be able to get from the teddy bear, and that is the wings and the tentacles on the face. Now, both of these took a little bit of trial and error. The wings less so, because I had a pretty straightforward idea of what I wanted them to be. But the face tentacles, I don't show the cutting out, mostly because it took me like 5 different attempts of making tentacles in order for them to look semi-decent. So that was definitely a process, but overall, I think it ended up working out quite well, even if the fleece was being a little bit difficult. So, as mentioned, I did not end up filming any of the creation process of the face tentacles because I honestly had no idea what I was really going for until they were done. But what I did decide to do, once I had the head of the teddy bear sewn together, the geometry was a little bit different than what would account for the traditional muzzle of a teddy bear, and instead of trying to figure out how to sew those on with my sewing machine, I decided to hand sew the tentacles onto the face. I could be more precise with their placement. I could, customize how secure they were going to be. And overall, I just thought it was going to be the better option and the least stressful option because I did not have to worry about the geometry necessarily of the face pieces. I could just sew them onto what was there. I stuffed, destuffed, and restuffed this teddy bear so many times so that I could understand the proportions and yet also make it easier to work with. It was kind of a nightmare. But all the fluff that I used is the same that was in the teddy bear. I actually didn't end up needing any additional fluff. So I wanted that line in the center of the wing, and so I decided the detail for that would be a ribbon that was a similar color to the main body of the blue. I used a zigzag stitch on this so that on the back it would have some semblance of the line as well that would show up better than just a single line of straight stitches. And while it was a pain to keep it straight, this is actually, I think, one of my favorite details of the plushie. I'm going to be honest, piecing this project together for a video was a little bit difficult because of how much I jumped around to the different pieces during the process. Here I'm sewing on another one of the face tentacles. I did the wings, and then I went back to the face tentacles. It was all over the place, but it ended up working out, so I think it's fine. So I do apologize if this video is slightly chaotic in nature. It's very reflective of the creation process. Now back to the wings. The other struggle I had with the wings was trying to figure out a way that they would stay stable and vertical. So my solution was throughout the entire arch of the wing, I actually used one of the reeds I use for basket weaving to just kind of help hold the arch on the outside of the wing and give it some semblance of structure, but that didn't need to be as stable as the center part of the wing, so they would actually stay vertical. This is one of those very thick, stiff pieces of wire that comes in the center of fake flower bouquets. I've used these before in the headdress that I showed off a while ago. They can be bent and shaped, and they are quite strong. None of the other wire I had was sufficient for holding up the weight of the wings, but this was, and so I cut it in half and bent it slightly and used that as the support for the wings. To secure the wings and hide that wire, I cut a hole in the back at about the point where the wing would jut out and the wire would disappear, and then sewed around the wire and reed base so that it would basically be held in the vertical position against the back. And I also sewed part of the wing itself onto the back to try to help keep it up, and of course I sewed the hole shut and made sure it was attached to the fabric of the wing. Now that all of the extremities are attached, it's time to finish stuffing them. The 2 center tentacles actually still have a hole through the head, so I was able to finish stuffing those at this point. And then I was also just trying to plump up the head so I could actually see the dimensions of it, so I could figure out where his eyes should go. I didn't want to accidentally put them too far forward or too far to the side and make him look all wonky. Once I figured out where the eyes should go, it was pretty simple. I used black thread to sew them on into their respective locations, which was slightly difficult due to the small access opening I had in the side of the plushie. And I was still very worried that I was going to end up with these super lopsided and just not in the right place at all. But they ended up in the right place, and they look super cute, and I bought like multiple different sizes of buttons before I found the ones that I liked. Going big, I think, definitely helped get the look that I was going for. Once I'd finished sewing the eyes on, I was able to actually finish stuffing the arms and the rest of the head, and could begin sewing up the back. This is why you typically leave the access opening or the last opening of the plushie in the back, because if you hand stitch it messy, no one's going to see it. This did end up being pretty messy, just because of trying to maneuver around the wings and also ensure that the arm was getting secured properly, but it's in the back and no one's gonna see it, so I think it's fine. Arguably, there also could have been a little bit more fluff in the head, because I did end up using some for the tentacles, so there wasn't as much for the actual body as there was in the original teddy bear. However, I think he still looks proportional and just fine. And one last thing, because I redid the arm so many times, I definitely messed up the pattern a little bit, and so there were 2 openings in the front that were bothering me that I decided to take the time and hand-stitched close just to give him a better, more complete and finished appearance.
So here we are! The dude is done. Oh my goodness, I have no idea where Frame is. Regardless, I've definitely taken pictures of him by now. Biggest thing, this was probably the most chaotic creation process I've gone through. I'm sure I explained it in the voiceover. I didn't really go into this to actually putting them together with a plan. I kind of had a reference of a teddy bear pattern online, but I didn't follow it super well, so, you know, it is what it is. I just kind of got excited and started putting things together. But, I mean, I think he's adorable. I love his wings, his little buttons. Is he crooked, lopsided, and a little bit funky? Yes. Did I make this from scratch? Also yes. Is he adorable? Yes. Am I proud of it? Yes. So I now have a Cthulhu plushie that nobody else does. Whether you have a Cthulhu plushie or not, you don't have this one. There is no pattern for this one, except the mangled remains of a teddy bear that may or may not be turned into something else. We shall see. But I have successfully taken a teddy bear and turned it into a Cthulhu. I'm super proud of him. I think he's adorable. Look at him! So, Domino is definitely not pleased with my 4 days of sewing constantly, but it's been a great rainy day activity, and if you've gotten to this point in the video, you might as well subscribe and or like this video. I do a lot of crafting stuff like this. I'm trying to get better as far as the editing side of putting it all together, so we're working on it, but I think he's super cute. I'm really happy with the end result, and I think that's about it. Thank you so much again. Thank you for watching this video. I don't know how you found me, but I'm very glad that you did. And with that, I will see you in the next one.